So, me and my buddies decided to splurge on a luxury yacht for a Mediterranean cruise. Seemed like a dream, right? But this vacation was about to take a turn into nightmare territory that we never saw coming. The yacht was top-notch, everything we hoped for. We were excited, thinking this was going to be the best trip ever. But then, as the days went by, tension started bubbling within the group. It was like the confined space of the yacht was amplifying every little disagreement. One evening, as we sailed under the moonlit Mediterranean sky, we spotted this mysterious boat on the horizon. It wasn't like any regular vessel. It seemed intent on getting close to us. We shrugged it off at first, thinking maybe it was just another group enjoying the open sea. But as the mysterious boat got closer, things got weird. It started tailing us, staying just at the edge of our vision. Panic set in as we realized this wasn't some casual encounter on the Mediterranean. It felt more like we were being hunted. The atmosphere on the yacht went from party vibes to pure tension. We couldn't shake off the feeling that the mysterious boat had some dark intentions. The open sea that once seemed like our playground now felt like a vast, unpredictable expanse of danger. As the night deepened, the mysterious boat started making aggressive maneuvers. It was like a game of cat and mouse on the open sea. Tensions within our group rose even higher, the confined space of the yacht becoming a pressure cooker of fear. We tried to radio for help, but the responses were garbled, as if the sea itself was against us. The crew on the mysterious boat seemed relentless, their intent unclear but undoubtedly menacing. It was like a horror movie unfolding in real time on the Mediterranean. The yacht's engine started acting up, sputtering as if it had a mind of its own. Panic turned into desperation as we realized we were at the mercy of the mysterious boat. The Mediterranean, once a symbol of leisure, now felt like a treacherous expanse that held our fate. Then, out of nowhere, the mysterious boat rammed into our yacht. The impact sent shockwaves through the vessel, and we stumbled and clung to whatever we could. It was chaos, the sea spray hitting us as we tried to comprehend the nightmare unfolding. The yacht's crew rushed to assess the damage, but it was clear we were in trouble. The mysterious boat circled like a predator, its crew probably reveling in the terror they had inflicted upon us. Our trained Mediterranean cruise had turned into a nightmare on the open sea. As we desperately tried to repair the yacht, the mysterious boat kept its menacing presence. It felt like they were toying with us, pushing us closer to the edge of fear and despair. The confined space of the yacht became a prison, and the open sea turned into a vast, ominous abyss. Hours passed, and the mysterious boat continued its relentless pursuit. We were exhausted, physically and mentally drained. The luxury yacht that once felt like our sanctuary now seemed like a sinking ship in the face of this relentless menace. Finally, we managed to get the yacht's engine working, but the mysterious boat wasn't done with us. They continued their pursuit, the relentless waves echoing the terror within our hearts. It was like a never-ending nightmare on the Mediterranean, the sea holding us captive in a night of terror. As dawn broke, the mysterious boat finally veered off, disappearing into the horizon. We were left battered, shaken, and haunted by the encounter. The Mediterranean, once a symbol of leisure, now held the memory of a nightmarish ordeal that changed our lives forever. We docked at the nearest port, reported the incident to the authorities, but the mystery of the menacing boat remained unsolved. So, I'm this solo traveler, right? Decided to rent this historic Airbnb in the French Quarter of New Orleans. Thought it would be a cool way to experience the city's vibe. Little did I know, this place was going to be more than I bargained for. The Airbnb looked charming, this old building with a lot of character. I was excited, thinking it would be a cozy stay in the heart of the French Quarter. But, you know, looks can be deceiving. As I settled in, things started feeling off. The air in the place was heavy, like there was something lingering in the corners. but I brushed it off, thinking it was just an old building with its quirks. One night, as I was exploring the place, I found this hidden door behind a bookshelf. It led to this narrow staircase that descended into darkness. Curiosity got the better of me, and I went down those creaky steps. Turns out, the Airbnb had this hidden underground space. It was like a whole other world down there. The air was musty, and the dim light barely illuminated the space. It felt like stepping into a different era, and that's when things got weird. As I snooped around, I found old documents, faded photographs, and letters hinting at some shady dealings. The charming property had a dark history, and I was stumbling into a web of deception. It was like the building itself was hiding its secrets in the shadows. The more I dug into the hidden history, the more I felt this sense of danger closing in. It was like the walls themselves were watching, and the air grew thicker with every revelation. The cozy Airbnb turned into a labyrinth of lies and danger. One night, as I was heading back up from the underground space, I heard voices. Whispers that echoed in the narrow staircase. Panic set in as I realized I wasn't alone in this historic Airbnb. Someone else was there, and their intentions were unclear. I tried to stay quiet, to not draw attention to myself. The shadows seemed to dance, and the air became charged with an ominous energy. It was like the charming property was holding its breath, waiting for something to unfold. Then, I saw them. A group of people, cloaked in darkness, moving with purpose. It wasn't just a historic Airbnb, it was a hideout for some shady dealings. My heart raced as I realized I had stumbled upon something way more dangerous than a solo traveler should ever encounter. As the group descended into the hidden space, I tried to slip away unnoticed. But the creaky steps betrayed me, and they turned to face me. Fear gripped me as I stood there, caught in the act. The cozy charm of the Airbnb transformed into a stage for a dangerous encounter. They questioned me, their eyes filled with suspicion. I played innocent, claiming I was just exploring the historic aspects of the place. But deep down, I knew I had stumbled into something that went beyond the charm of a French Quarter Airbnb. The group's demeanor shifted, and I realized I was in over my head. They weren't just history enthusiasts, they were involved in something illicit. The cozy facade of the Airbnb became a backdrop for a confrontation with dangerous individuals. They didn't want me snooping around, and the danger in their eyes was palpable. Panic set in as I realized I had to get out of there, away from the historic property that now felt like a trap closing in. I stumbled up the staircase, the voices and shadows fading as I reached the familiar ground. I packed my things in a hurry, leaving the Airbnb behind. The charming property had turned into a nightmare, and the French Quarter, once a symbol of vibrant culture, felt like a labyrinth of deception and danger. I reported the incident to the authorities, but the mystery of the historic Airbnb remained unsolved. So, we, the family, thought it'd be a great idea to have a winter vacation at this fancy ski resort in Aspen, Colorado. You know, hit the slopes, enjoy the crisp mountain air. But, man, that place had more secrets than we bargained for. Everything started all cozy, checking into this swanky resort. We were pumped, ready for some family fun in the snow. But soon, things started getting weird. Accidents left and right, all around the mountain. First, it was just little things, a loose railing, a slippery patch on the slope. We thought, it's a ski resort, accidents happen. But then, it got worse. Ski equipment malfunctioning, sudden icy patches on well-groomed trails. It was like the mountain itself had it out for us. We tried reporting the accidents to the resort staff, but they brushed it off like we were overreacting. Just a run of bad luck, they said. But we felt it in our bones, you know? The cozy winter vacation turned into a paranoia-filled nightmare on the snowy slopes. One day, we found this narrow trail that wasn't on the map. Curiosity got the better of us, and we decided to explore. That's when things got really strange. The trail led to this secluded area, away from the main slopes. It felt like we stumbled upon the resort's dirty little secret. There, we saw the staff arguing, heated exchanges about something we couldn't quite catch. It was like they were hiding more than just ski accidents. As we listened in, it became clear there was some vendetta among the staff, and we accidentally walked right into the crossfire. The tension was thick, like you could cut it with a knife. Accusations flew, fingers pointed. It wasn't just about ski accidents, it was personal. Grudges and revenge brewing among the people we thought were there to ensure our safety. The family went back to our room, shaken by what we witnessed. The cozy resort now felt like a minefield, every step a potential disaster. We started questioning if we should even be there, caught in the middle of a dangerous game among the staff. As we hit the slopes the next day, the accidents escalated. It was like the staff had ramped up their vendetta, making it clear that we were not welcome. Ski lifts malfunctioned, paths were mysteriously blocked. It felt like we were being targeted, and the snowy paradise turned into a battleground. We tried to capture evidence of the incidents, thinking maybe the authorities could sort it out. But each time, our cameras malfunctioned or went missing. The staff was one step ahead, playing dirty in their dangerous game. The family argued about leaving, but we were determined to unveil the truth. As we delved deeper into the mystery, it became clear that the vendetta among the staff had roots in some unresolved conflict. The winter wonderland became a backdrop for a dangerous drama, and we were unwilling participants. One night, we overheard a heated conversation among the staff in the resort's lounge. It was like they were laying out their plan, plotting something big. Fear settled in as we realized we were in the crosshairs of their dangerous game. We reported everything to the resort management, but they dismissed it as paranoia. Accidents happen, they said. But we knew better. The vendetta among the staff escalated, and it felt like we were living in a suspenseful thriller rather than enjoying a winter vacation. The family decided it was time to leave, to escape the dangerous drama unfolding on the snowy slopes. As we packed our bags, we could feel the eyes of the staff on us, like shadows watching from the trees. The cozy resort turned into a place of danger, and our winter vacation became a tale of survival. We left Aspen, leaving behind the cold mountain air and the dangerous vendetta that lurked beneath the snowy surface. We thought a Caribbean cruise was the perfect way to celebrate our anniversary. Sunsets over the ocean, warm breezes, and the promise of relaxation. Little did we know that our dream getaway would soon morph into a haunting experience, a nightmare on the waves. Our ship sailed into azure waters, and the atmosphere was festive. As we explored the cruise liner's luxuries, we noticed an inconspicuous group of passengers, a few individuals who didn't seem to share the collective joy. Their hushed conversations and furtive glances betrayed an air of secrecy. One evening, we overheard fragments of conversations that hinted at something sinister. A couple at the adjacent table spoke in hushed tones about a deal that would transpire on the ship. Our curiosity mingled with an unsettling feeling, like a storm brewing on the horizon. Days passed, and our unease grew. We witnessed exchanges in secluded corners, briefcases changing hands, and coded messages pass between the shadowy group. The carefree ambience of the cruise was overshadowed by an undercurrent of tension. Our first encounter with the group was accidental. A wrong turn down a dimly lit corridor led us into the midst of their covert meeting. The air thickened with tension as our eyes met theirs. We hastily retreated, hoping our inadvertent intrusion went unnoticed. Fear gnawed at us as we pieced together the puzzle. The group wasn't here for leisure. They were orchestrating something ominous aboard the vessel. What started as a celebration became a test of survival. The ship's opulence now felt like a facade, masking the dangers lurking in the shadows. We confided in a few fellow passengers, forming an unofficial alliance against the impending threat. The once jubilant cruise now resembled a high-stakes game, and we were unwitting players. Each day brought heightened paranoia. The criminals' activities escalated, and the crew remained oblivious or unwilling to acknowledge the impending danger. We felt like hostages on a vessel sailing towards an unknown fate. Late one night, as the ship cut through the dark waters, we stumbled upon a chilling scene. The clandestine group gathered in a secluded area, making final preparations for whatever nefarious plan awaited. We were caught eavesdropping, and the leader's menacing gaze sent shivers down our spines. Fearing for our lives, we reported our discovery to the ship's authorities, but skepticism met our pleas for help. The group, aware of our interference, turned their attention towards us. The once celebratory cruise now resembled a high-stakes game of survival. With no assistance from the ship's crew, we devised our own plan to escape the clutches of the criminals. As the ship docked at a port, we discreetly disembarked, leaving behind the ominous cruise that had transformed into a floating den of danger. Our anniversary celebration turned into an ordeal etched into our memories, a Caribbean cruise marred by the terror of criminal pursuits. I got this invitation to a corporate retreat in Dubai. They said it was all about team building and strategic planning, so I figured, why not? A few days away from the usual office grind sounded good. The resort was a grand place in the desert, all opulent and shiny. People in suits roamed around, talking about mergers and profits. I was out of my comfort zone, but I thought I'd play along. One night, I overheard a conversation. A couple of higher-ups were discussing something in hushed tones. Being nosy, I got closer. Turns out, there was some shady deal in the works, a plot to sabotage the competition. My name was dragged into it too. Blackmail or something. I felt like I was in a bad movie. The atmosphere got tense. I tried to act normal, attend the meetings, and play the corporate game. But paranoia set in. I couldn't trust anyone. Every smile felt like a disguise, every handshake a potential betrayal. Late one night, I found a file. It detailed the whole sinister plan. I felt like I stumbled onto something big, something dangerous. My heart raced as I read about the intricacies of the plot. It wasn't just about business, it was about ruining lives. Fear not at me. I was just a small fish in this big corporate pond. As I dug deeper, I realized they were onto me. Colleagues avoided eye contact, and whispers followed me wherever I went. It was like being trapped in a maze, with no way out. I decided to confront the ones behind the plot. A risky move, but what choice did I have? I cornered one of them in the hallway, showed him the file. He laughed it off, said it was all a game, and I was playing the wrong role. That night, I heard footsteps outside my room. Paranoia peaked. I couldn't sleep, fearing they'd come for me. The lavish resort felt like a prison. The walls closed in with every passing hour. My career was on the line, and so was my life. I had no allies, just a bunch of enemies wearing suits. The retreat turned into a nightmare, and Dubai's luxury transformed into a gilded cage. The final day arrived, and I had to make a move. I confronted the ringleader in front of everyone, spilled the beans. Chaos ensued, accusations flew, but it was my word against theirs. They had power, I had fear. As I left the desert resort, I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. I feared for my safety. The corporate world, glittering on the outside, hid dark corners where betrayal and deceit thrived. I survived the retreat, but I left Dubai with a sense of dread. The plush surroundings masked the treacherous currents beneath. The corporate world had shown its ugliest face, and I was just a pawn in a dangerous game. We were pumped for the backpacking adventure in the jungles of Thailand. It was me and my 3 buddies, seeking a thrill in the unknown. The jungle seemed like the perfect backdrop for our wild stories, but little did we know, it had its secrets. The day started with excitement. We hiked through dense foliage, laughing and joking. The air was thick with humidity, and the sounds of the jungle surrounded us. Birds chirped, insects buzzed, and the distant rustling of leaves provided a natural soundtrack. As we ventured deeper, the atmosphere changed. Unbeknownst to us, we had stumbled into an area controlled by a dangerous group. We were oblivious, taking pictures and discussing the beauty around us. That's when we first noticed them, shadowy figures in the dense greenery. At first, we dismissed it as our imagination playing tricks. Maybe it was just other hikers. But as we continued, the figures became more defined. Men, armed and watching us from the cover of the trees. Panic set in, but we tried to convince ourselves it was a misunderstanding. As the day wore on, the jungle seemed to close in on us. We felt eyes on us, unseen predators observing our every move. Paranoia crept through our group, and we started to argue about the best course of action. Some wanted to push forward, while others advocated for turning back. In the midst of our heated discussion, one of the figures stepped forward. A man with a stern expression and a presence that sent shivers down our spines. He spoke, revealing our unwitting trespass into their territory. They were a group with a reputation for violence, controlling the remote parts of the jungle. Fear seized us, and we realized the gravity of our situation. They demanded our belongings, passports, money, everything. Compliance seemed the only option as the menacing figures surrounded us. We handed over our possessions, feeling the weight of vulnerability in the heart of the dense jungle. They didn't stop there. The leader made it clear that we were now under their control. Panic turned to desperation as they forced us to march deeper into the jungle. The dense vegetation closed in around us, and the oppressive heat compounded our misery. With every step, the realization sank in, our dream adventure had become a nightmare. Days blurred together as we trudged through the unforgiving terrain. Fear clung to us like the humidity in the air. Escape seemed impossible, and our hope dwindled with each passing moment. The jungle that once symbolized adventure now held us captive, and the dangerous group controlled our every move. Our survival instincts kicked in. We navigated through the tangled vegetation, looking for any opportunity to break free. But the jungle was a labyrinth, and the group's watchful eyes kept us on a tight leash. The relentless march continued, and our once vibrant spirits were crushed by the weight of uncertainty. It became clear that our only chance was to wait for a moment of distraction or weakness. We observed the group, searching for any signs of vulnerability. Tensions within their ranks gave us a glimmer of hope. The jungle, with its myriad dangers, became our ally in this desperate bid for freedom. One fateful night, as the group slept, we seized our opportunity. Silently, we slipped away into the darkness, guided by the moonlight filtering through the dense canopy. Every step was fraught with fear, the slightest sound echoing in the stillness of the jungle. The oppressive humidity clung to our skin as we moved with stealth. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig heightened our anxiety. We navigated the labyrinth of trees, guided only by our survival instincts. The jungle, once a menacing prison, now offered us a chance at escape. Days turned into nights as we pressed on, driven by fear and the instinct to survive. Exhausted and depleted, we finally stumbled upon a trail that led us to civilization. The relief was overwhelming, but the scars of our ordeal lingered. Our backpacking adventure had become a fight for survival, a harrowing tale etched into our memories. The jungles of Thailand, once an alluring backdrop, had tested us in ways we could never have imagined. We emerged from the ordeal changed, haunted by the shadows of the dangerous group that turned our vacation into a desperate struggle to make it out alive. So, my wife and I decided to do something adventurous and book this safari thing in South Africa. We thought it'd be cool, seeing lions and stuff. But man, it turned into something straight out of a crime thriller. We're out there in the Jeep, cameras ready, and we start noticing things. Weird stuff. At first, it's just the animals acting strange, but then we stumble upon this makeshift camp. Tents and all, but it ain't for tourists. It's poachers, and they're not happy we found them. We try to sneak away, but they spot us. Guns in hand, mean looks on their faces. I feel my stomach drop. This was supposed to be a vacation, not a crime scene. We cut it back to our guide, spill the beans. He gets this worried look, says we need to leave now. Turns out, these poachers are no joke. They're into some serious business, smuggling animal parts or who knows what. And here we are, just two dumb tourists in the middle of it. Our guide takes us off the beaten path, hoping to shake off the poachers. It's getting dark, and the fear's creeping in. We hear noises in the bushes, wondering if they're following us. I'm clutching my camera like it's a shield, but it ain't gonna stop a bullet. We come across a clearing, and there's a gunshot. My wife screams. I can't breathe. Our guide's been hit. Blood's everywhere. We're in the middle of the African wilderness with a wounded guide and killers on our tail. He tells us to run, get to the road, find help. We stumble through the darkness, branches slashing at us, heart pounding in my ears. We hear more gunshots, closer now. They're playing games with us, hunting us like animals. We finally hit the road, and there's a car. Thank God. We flag it down, tell the driver everything. He speeds off, saying he'll get help. We're left by the roadside, shivering, praying that someone comes before those poachers do. Hours pass, but finally, headlights pierce the dark. It's the authorities. They found us. Relief washes over, but it's short-lived. Our guide didn't make it. He sacrificed himself so we could escape. Turns out, the poachers were part of some big operation. The authorities had been trying to bust them for a while. Our little safari just stumbled into the middle of it. They tell us we were lucky, but I don't feel lucky. I feel haunted. We're back in the Jeep, this time with armed rangers. They find the poachers' camp, arrest a bunch of them. It's justice, but it doesn't bring back our guide. There we were, a bunch of colleagues on a so-called corporate retreat in Cancun, Mexico. The whole team-building nonsense. We figured it'd be a free trip to a beach resort, maybe some lame icebreakers, and lots of drinks. Turns out, it was way more than any of us bargained for. First couple of days were standard stuff. Meetings in the morning, bonding activities in the afternoon, and evenings by the beach bar. Seemed like paradise. But paradise has a way of flipping into hell, I guess. One night, after a round of tequila shots, we find these mysterious envelopes in our rooms. No return address, just our names. We open them up, and inside are these weird instructions. It's like some sick game. Do this, go there, meet at midnight. We're all laughing it off, thinking it's some cheesy team-building exercise cooked up by management. But as we follow the instructions, things get real weird, real fast. Midnight, we're on the beach, and suddenly, the lights go out. Pitch black. Then, out of nowhere, we start hearing footsteps. Not the sound you want to hear in the dark. We're stumbling around, trying to figure out who's who, and that's when the real game begins. Flashlights hit us from all sides, blinding us. Strangers emerge from the darkness, masked faces, dressed in all black. They're herding us like cattle, shouting orders. It's chaos. Panic sets in. We're split into groups, each led by these masked figures. They hand us these envelopes with new instructions. Follow them, they say, or face consequences. Now, we're not laughing anymore. It's like something out of a horror movie. They're making us do these messed up challenges, pushing us to the limit. The beach, once our escape, feels like a trap. No more paradise, just fear. One by one, our group dwindles. People vanish, and you're left wondering if they're okay or if something worse happened. The masked figures are relentless, shadows in the night, orchestrating our every move. As the night drags on, it becomes clear this isn't some management gimmick. It's a sick game of survival. We're being tested, pushed beyond our limits. Friendships crumble, alliances form, and the beach, once a haven, becomes a battleground. By sunrise, we're exhausted, mentally and physically drained. The masked figures disappear into the darkness, leaving us shaken and scarred. The beach resort, once a dream destination, transforms into a haunting memory. We never find out who orchestrated this nightmare. Maybe it was some twisted individual or some sick experiment. All I know is that corporate retreat scarred us in ways we never imagined. We thought it'd be a great idea, pack the family into a camper van and explore the Australian outback. Get away from the daily grind, see some red dust, and maybe spot a kangaroo or two. Little did we know, this family adventure would turn into a nightmare. We headed into the vast emptiness of the outback, miles and miles of nothing but red dirt and scorching sun. The scenery was breathtaking, but little did we realize, we weren't alone out there. There were others, lurking in the shadows. First, it was subtle. A distant vehicle on the horizon, disappearing as quickly as it appeared. We didn't think much of it, just figured there were other travelers out in this vast expanse. But soon, it became clear that those distant figures had their eyes on us. Late one afternoon, we set up camp in a seemingly deserted area. No other vans, no signs of life. As night fell, we heard distant whispers carried by the wind. Faint, but there. And that's when it started. Shadows moved in the darkness around our campsite. Footsteps, too soft to be animals, but definitely not the crunch of our own shoes. The air turned heavy, filled with an unspoken tension. We huddled together, trying to ignore the unease settling in. Then, out of nowhere, headlights pierced the dark. Several vehicles, coming right at us. Panic set in. Who were these people, and what did they want? We huddled in the van, hoping they'd pass by, but they surrounded us like hungry wolves closing in on prey. A knock on the window, harsh and demanding. We rolled it down, fear etched on our faces. The strangers, rough-looking and expressionless, demanded we get out. They said we were trespassing on their turf, as if the entire outback belonged to them. They circled us, intimidating and hostile. We felt like prey, surrounded by predators. They didn't want our belongings, they wanted us gone, out of their territory. But the threat lingered, and we knew we were at their mercy. As we drove away from that makeshift camp, we could see their shadows in the rearview mirror, disappearing into the darkness. Our adventure turned into a race against fear, the vastness of the outback now a menacing labyrinth. We didn't stop until we reached a more populated area. The sun rose, revealing the desolation we'd left behind. The family adventure we dreamed of became a chilling memory, forever etched in our minds. To this day, I can't look at a camper van without remembering the shadows in the outback. So, I decided to take a solo trip to Lapland, Finland. You know, the whole magical winter wonderland thing. It was supposed to be an adventure, something to cross off the bucket list. Little did I know, it would turn into something straight out of a nightmare. The snow-covered landscape was serene, almost magical. I checked into a cozy cabin, surrounded by the quiet beauty of Lapland. I felt like I stepped into a postcard. That's when things started to get weird. One evening, as I strolled through the snow-covered woods, I stumbled upon a clearing. There, a group of people in the middle of a ritual or something. Cloaked figures, chanting in a language I couldn't understand. I froze, not sure if I should intervene or run away. Curiosity got the better of me, and I hid behind a tree, watching. They had candles, strange symbols, the whole deal. It felt like they were harnessing the enchanting setting for something nefarious. Fear crept in as I realized I might have stumbled onto something dangerous. I hurried back to my cabin, heart pounding. That night, I couldn't shake off the eerie feeling that I was being watched. The snowfall outside seemed to muffle any sound, amplifying the silence. The enchanting winter wonderland had turned into a backdrop for something sinister. Days passed, and the unease grew. I started noticing the same cloaked figures in the village, always a step behind me. It was like they were playing a twisted game, toying with me in the vast snowy expanse. I tried talking to the locals, but they evaded my questions, casting fearful glances at the mention of the cloaked figures. It was like some dark secret everyone knew but refused to share. One night, as the northern lights danced in the sky, I realized I couldn't stay in that cabin any longer. I had to confront these mysterious figures, figure out what they were up to. Armed with nothing but fear and confusion, I ventured into the snow-covered wilderness. The cold air bit into my skin as I approached the clearing where I first saw them. But this time, it was different. The ritual had escalated. A sense of impending doom hung in the air. I watched as they chanted louder, their movements more frenzied. Then, they noticed me. Panic set in, and I turned to run. The snow beneath my feet betrayed me, slowing me down. I could hear their footsteps closing in. Fear surged as I realized the danger I'd stumbled into. The wilderness that once felt enchanting now seemed like a labyrinth, trapping me with these sinister figures. I dodged between trees, the icy wind biting at my face. It became a chase, a life-or-death pursuit through the snowy landscape. Miraculously, I managed to lose them, finding refuge in a remote cabin. I hid, breathless and terrified, waiting for the night to pass. So, there we were, a bunch of us, thinking we could conquer the Himalayas. You know, some adventure, a break from the routine. Little did we know, it was going to be more than just a climb. It was a descent into something sinister. The trek started all right, breathtaking views and all that. We were pumped, thinking this was the adventure of a lifetime. But as we climbed higher, things started to get weird. We weren't alone on this path, not by a long shot. One day, we stumbled upon another group, equally determined to reach the summit. Seemed like a coincidence, right? Well, turns out, they had their eyes on the same prize, and they weren't the friendly competition type. Nope, they were willing to throw down to claim that summit. Tensions rose fast. It wasn't about sharing the glory, it was a territorial dispute, like two alpha dogs fighting over a scrap of meat. We tried to reason, like, hey, let's all be friends and reach the top together. But it was clear, they weren't having it. The nights got colder, and so did our relations with this rival group. They'd pass by our camp, giving us those dark stares, muttering who knows what. We could feel it, that this wasn't just a friendly race. This was a battle, a survival thing. Things took a turn for the worse when one of their guys, a burly dude with a chip on his shoulder, started making threats. He said, "You better step aside if you know what's good for you." Real tough guy, you know? It was like a ticking time bomb. We knew we couldn't outrun them, and going back wasn't an option. The mountain had become this battleground, and the summit, the prize in a twisted game we never signed up for. Every step we took, they were right there, shadows in the periphery, a constant reminder that this was more than just an adventure. This was a fight for survival, and the air, thin as it was, became heavy with impending danger. One night, it all went down. Shouting, fists flying, pure chaos. We fought for our tents, for a safe spot to sleep. It was like we were living in some messed up survival reality show. But this wasn't scripted, it was raw, real, and terrifying. In the end, we managed to fend them off, but not without casualties. Bruised, battered, and emotionally drained, we realized the summit was no longer the victory we sought. It had become a haunted place, tainted by the ugly side of human nature. We reached the top, sure, but it felt empty. The view that should have been triumphant was now a backdrop to the haunting memories of that deadly rivalry. The descent was somber, each step echoing the weight of what we'd experienced. The Himalayas, once a symbol of awe and grandeur, now held a darker place in our hearts. We were on our family holiday in Selsey, West Sussex, and we'd set up our caravan at a quaint park near the coast. It seemed like the ideal spot for a relaxing getaway with my wife and 2 kids. The weather was mild, and the park had the familiar holiday vibe, with families enjoying the outdoors. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, we decided to take a stroll around the park. It was then that we noticed another family, seemingly friendly, with kids around the same age as ours. We exchanged pleasantries and decided to share a bit of our evening by the communal campfire. The other family, the Johnsons, appeared amiable at first. We chatted about the typical things, the weather, the park amenities, and our respective vacations. Their kids played with ours, and everything seemed harmonious. Yet, beneath the surface, there was an undertone of something not quite right. As the night progressed, the Johnsons became increasingly intrusive. They kept asking personal questions, prying into our lives in a way that felt uncomfortable. I chalked it up to curiosity, but it soon became apparent there was more to it. The atmosphere around the campfire grew tense. Mr. Johnson's friendly demeanor started to feel forced, and his probing questions took on a more sinister edge. I noticed his eyes lingering on our caravan, and a sense of unease settled in my stomach. Later that night, as we settled in for some family time inside our caravan, a knock echoed through the quiet evening. It was the Johnsons. They wanted to chat, they said. Reluctantly, we invited them in, hoping to diffuse any growing tension. Inside our confined caravan, the atmosphere turned stifling. The Johnsons' questions became more invasive, probing into aspects of our lives that no casual acquaintance should care about. Their kids, once playing joyfully with ours, now sat in uncomfortable silence. Suddenly, Mr. Johnson's tone shifted. He started talking about a shared future, a plan for our families to stick together. It was bizarre and unsettling, and my wife shot me a worried glance. We needed them to leave, but their presence felt increasingly oppressive. The night wore on, and the Johnsons showed no signs of leaving. The unease grew into fear, and I couldn't shake the feeling that they harbored intentions beyond mere companionship. I managed to convince them it was time for bed, and we all retreated to our respective caravans. But the unease lingered. The next day, we spotted the Johnsons watching our every move from a distance. It was as if they were studying us, analyzing our routines. fear gnawed at the edges of our otherwise idyllic vacation. As the days passed, the Johnsons continued their intrusive behavior. They were always nearby, their eyes following us wherever we went. The once charming caravan park now felt like a trap, with the Johnsons closing in on our family. Desperation set in. We decided to cut our vacation short, packed up our caravan, and left without saying a word to the Johnsons. The relief was palpable as we drove away, leaving behind the unsettling atmosphere that had plagued our holiday. The encounter with the Johnsons haunted us long after we returned home. We couldn't shake the feeling that we'd narrowly escaped a threat we couldn't fully comprehend. The idyllic caravan park in Chelsea had become a place of fear. So, we were on vacation and we thought it was going to be a great family day out, you know? Headed to this mega theme park in Orlando. Kids were excited, and so were we. Little did we know, it was going to turn into something straight out of a nightmare. We're wandering around, you know, taking in the sights, kids laughing, and all. The usual theme park stuff. Then, things started feeling off. Like, weird vibes in the air, but we brushed it off, thinking it's just the crowds. As we're waiting in line for one of those roller coasters, we overhear some hush-hush talk nearby. People in dark clothing, looking all shady, exchanging words like they're planning something. My gut says, this ain't right. Weirdly, they're not there for the rides. They're eyeing the park's infrastructure. Like, scheming. At first, we're like, nah, can't be anything serious. But then, we noticed this guy, fiddling with some control panel near the ride. That's when it hit us. These folks are up to no good. We tried alerting the park staff, but in the sea of people, it's like they don't hear us. Panic starts creeping in as we realize these guys are messing with the rides, turning the whole place into a ticking time bomb. Kids are oblivious, thinking it's all part of the thrill. We're sweating bullets, trying to figure out what the hell to do. The park, supposed to be a place of joy, starts feeling like a trap. Suddenly, the rides start acting up, jerky movements, weird sounds. Chaos erupts as people realize something's seriously wrong. Those shady guys, they're not just messing around, they're turning a place of fun into a death trap. We grab the kids, hauling them away from the rides. It's pandemonium. Screams, shouts, panic everywhere. It's like a scene from a disaster movie, but it's real, and we're right in the middle of it. We see security rushing around, trying to contain the situation, but these guys planned it well. They've caused mayhem throughout the park, and now it's chaos. As we're trying to find an exit, the park's speakers crackle to life. A chilling voice echoes, saying something about revenge and exposing some dark secret. Turns out, these guys aren't just thrill seekers, they've got a vendetta, and the park's paying the price. It's a race against time. Rides are malfunctioning, people are trapped, and that sinister voice keeps taunting. We stick together, navigating through the madness, dodging the malfunctioning rides and the chaos. Finally, we stumble upon a security office, hoping they can shut down the rides or something. But it's empty, and the control panels are all messed up. These guys were thorough, like they studied the place for this very moment. With each passing minute, the park turns into a nightmare. We're running, sweating, praying for an escape. It's not just about the rides anymore, it's about survival. We need to get out before the whole place crumbles. We make it to the park's outskirts, finally catching our breaths. Sirens wail in the distance, and the chaos behind us paints a stark contrast to the supposed joy and laughter inside. The police arrive, and we spill the beans about the shady guys and their twisted plan. The park that was meant to bring smiles became a battleground for something darker. As we leave the nightmare behind, we can't shake the feeling that the innocence of that family day out was shattered. We thought a river cruise through the Amazon would be this epic adventure, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to experience the wild, the lush greenery, the whole jungle vibe? But let me tell you, it turned into a nightmare straight out of some thriller. We're on this boat, cruising down the river. The Amazon's vast, the trees towering over us. But as we go deeper, we start noticing some shady stuff. Like locals acting all secretive, whispering in hushed tones. We ain't in Kansas anymore, that's for sure. One evening, we dock at this seemingly quiet village. The air's thick with tension, and we catch wind of something fishy, illegal wildlife trade. Yeah, like poaching or something. The villagers, they're involved, trading animals on the black market. Monkeys, exotic birds, you name it. Now, we ain't vigilantes or anything, but witnessing this dark side of the jungle sends shivers down our spines. We overhear conversations about smuggling, big money involved. These people don't care about the jungle, it's all about profits. We're torn. Do we confront them, report to authorities, or just let it slide? But that night, as we're trying to sleep, strange noises surround our boat. Twigs snapping, whispers in the darkness. It's like the jungle's alive with secrets, and we're caught in the middle. Next morning, we decide to investigate. Sneak around the village, maybe snap some evidence to expose these guys. The adrenaline's pumping, our hearts pounding as we venture into this moral gray zone. Suddenly, we stumble upon a makeshift holding area. Cages of animals, exotic and scared out of their minds. It's heartbreaking, their eyes pleading for freedom. That's the tipping point. We gotta do something, but we're amateurs in this mess. The locals catch wind of our snooping. Eyes narrow, suspicious glares. It's like a scene from a crime movie. They know we're onto them. Panic sets in, we're trapped in this village of secrets. As we try to slip away, a villager confronts us. Angry words exchanged, accusations flying. The atmosphere gets thick with hostility. We're outsiders in a hidden world, and they don't take kindly to nosy tourists. Suddenly, the situation escalates. More villagers gather, blocking our escape. They're armed, not guns, but machetes, a chilling sight. Our little eco-adventure's taken a dark turn, and we're facing a group that doesn't want its secrets exposed. It's like a standoff, deep in the Amazon. They're furious, defending their illicit trade. We're terrified, just wanting to get out in one piece. Tensions peak, and it feels like a movie about to reach its climax. We manage to talk our way out, promise to keep our mouths shut. The villagers reluctantly let us go, but their stares linger, filled with warning. I thought a cozy bed and breakfast in the Irish countryside would be this dreamy escape, you know? Peaceful, charming, all that jazz. Turns out, it was more like a descent into the depths of horror. The B&B seemed straight out of a storybook, ancient, ivy-covered walls, creaky wooden floors, the whole shebang. As I settled into my quaint room, the atmosphere felt off. Not the cozy kind of off, but more like someone had whispered a secret that sent shivers down my spine. Night fell, and the creaks and groans of the old building took on a sinister tone. I couldn't shake this feeling that the place held secrets, deep, dark secrets that no TripAdvisor review could prepare you for. As I laid there in the creaky bed, I overheard hushed conversations in the hallway. People whispering in urgent tones. Irish accents so thick, it felt like a foreign language. I strained to catch the words, but it was all too cryptic. Curiosity got the better of me. I decided to investigate, slipped out into the dimly lit corridor. Shadows danced along the walls as I eavesdropped on a conversation behind a closed door. Something about a pact, a ritual, and a chilling mention of a past guest. Now, I'm no detective, but my intuition screamed danger. What had I stumbled upon? The charming facade of this quaint inn crumbled, revealing a hidden reality, something straight out of a nightmare. With every passing hour, the place felt more malevolent. Whispers in the dark, strange symbols etched in hidden corners, the air thick with a sense of impending doom. I started to regret ever booking this quaint little nightmare. I tried to leave, grab my bag and just get out of there. But the door wouldn't budge. It was like the walls were closing in on me, trapping me in a twisted reality I couldn't escape. Panic set in, and I realized I was at the mercy of whatever dark force lurked in this B&B. Sleep eluded me that night. The ticking of the ancient clock echoed like a countdown to something sinister. And then, the chanting began. Low, guttural voices from somewhere deep in the inn. The walls seemed to vibrate with their eerie hymns. As dawn broke, I mustered the courage to confront the innkeepers about the madness I'd witnessed. But they denied everything, innocent faces, genuine smiles, as if I'd dreamt the whole thing. Determined to prove I wasn't losing my mind, I snooped around. Hidden passages, secret rooms, it was like the building itself was complicit in the horror. And then, I found a photo, old and faded. Faces from decades ago, guests who vanished without a trace. That's when it hit me, the B&B wasn't just a charming inn. It was a trap, a nexus of malevolent energy feeding on unsuspecting guests, swallowing them into some unholy abyss. Fear became my constant companion. Every shadow seemed to harbor unseen eyes, watching, judging. The quaintness of the Irish countryside had transformed into a nightmarish landscape where reality and nightmare tangled into an inescapable web. Days blurred into nights, each more terrifying than the last. The inn became a labyrinth of horrors, and I was the unwilling captive. There was no escape, no reprieve from the torment that awaited beyond each creaking door. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I confronted the innkeepers, accused them of orchestrating whatever dark ritual had ensnared me. Their eyes glinted with malevolence, and laughter echoed through the halls as they revealed their true nature, guardians of a cursed legacy. I stumbled out of that hellish bed and breakfast, gasping for air, my mind unraveling from the horrors it had witnessed. Me and my buddies thought a camping trip to Yosemite would be the bomb. Getting away from the city, enjoying the great outdoors, typical stuff. We found this sweet spot, or at least we thought so at first. We set up camp near this group of people, didn't think much of it at the beginning. They seemed like your regular outdoorsy folks. But as night crept in, things got weird. Real weird. First off, they had this constant huddle going on, whispering like they were plotting the heist of the century or something. Every now and then, one of them would stare in our direction, a sinister glint in their eyes. I shrugged it off, told myself I was just being paranoid. Then, we started hearing these muffled arguments, voices rising, tempers flaring. It was like they were at each other's throats, but trying to keep it under wraps. Red flags, right? But we were in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by trees and shadows that swallowed any rational thought. As we gathered around the campfire, we noticed them watching us. Not the casual glance, but a predatory stare. Like we were the prey and they were sizing us up. It made my skin crawl, but I didn't want to ruin the vibe, Later, when we hit the tents, I overheard their conversations. They were planning something, and it wasn't marshmallow roasting techniques. They kept mentioning our camp, talking about how easy it would be to take what we had. I nudged my friends awake, told them something was off. We decided to stay alert, keeping an eye on those shady neighbors. It felt like we were on some reality show, only the stakes were way higher than a cash prize. Midnight struck, and that's when things hit the fan. We heard footsteps around our campsite, soft whispers riding on the night breeze. Panic set in. We couldn't just pack up and leave. The darkness had swallowed the path back. We huddled together, clutching whatever makeshift weapons we could find, flashlights, tent poles, you name it. The rustling intensified, shadows danced on the edges of our flickering fire. My heart pounded in my chest like a drum in a horror movie soundtrack. Then, silence. Complete and utter silence. It felt like the whole forest was holding its breath. We strained our ears, but nothing. No footsteps, no whispers, just an oppressive stillness. Morning came, and the neighboring campsite was deserted. No trace of the ominous group, like they were ghosts in the night. We packed up in record time, leaving Yosemite behind without a backward glance. On the way out, we ran into a park ranger. We spilled the beans, told him about our creepy neighbors and the close encounter with whatever they had in mind. The ranger's face darkened, and he assured us they'd look into it. We left Yosemite with a story to tell, one that still sends shivers down my spine. We were naive campers, stumbling into the web of something sinister. Who knows what those people wanted, our gear, a sick joke, or something more nefarious? One thing's for sure, though, Yosemite, with its towering trees and majestic cliffs, hides more than breathtaking views. It harbors secrets, shadows that dance with intentions darker than the night. And we, unsuspecting campers, almost became part of that enigmatic horror. So, me, the wife, and the kids decided to go all out and book this Arctic Circle cruise. You know, to catch a glimpse of those legendary northern lights. Seemed like a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and we were all excited. Boarding that ship, it felt like we were on a floating city. All these people from different corners of the world, all seeking the magic of the lights. We thought we hit the jackpot, family adventure style. The first few days were a blast. We explored the ship, enjoyed the views, and waited eagerly for the lights to show up. Nights were chilly, but the anticipation kept us warm. Then things took a turn. A bad one. We overheard some crew members talking in hushed tones, like they didn't want anyone to catch wind of their conversation. We're not snoops, but when it comes to the safety of our family, you bet we eavesdrop. Turns out, there was something off about the ship's route. A deviation that wasn't on any itinerary. It got us thinking, you know, what were they up to? One night, curiosity got the best of me. I decided to explore the lower decks, where passengers weren't supposed to go. I figured it might reveal what was really happening. As I sneaked around, I stumbled upon a room. No signs, no labels, just a plain door. When I cracked it open, I saw a bunch of people huddled around maps, charts, and what looked like blueprints of the ship. Now, that's fishy. They were talking about some secret drop-off point, something about packages, and the words off the grid popped up more than once. My gut twisted. I had to get back to my family and figure out what was going on. I told my wife about the weird happenings. She was skeptical at first, thinking I watched too many spy movies. But as we compared notes and connected the dots, the unease settled in. The next evening, as the ship sailed through icy waters, we noticed a sudden change in direction. It wasn't subtle. Passengers murmured, shooting worried glances at each other. The northern lights? That was the last thing on anyone's mind. We decided to gather some other concerned passengers. Safety in numbers, right? A bunch of us confronted the crew, demanding answers. The ship's captain, visibly flustered, admitted to an unauthorized detour. They were involved in some shady deal, transporting goods to a rendezvous point that had nothing to do with our Northern Lights quest. Suddenly, it all made sense. The hushed conversations, the secret of maps, the eerie room. The ship wasn't just carrying passengers, it was a pawn in some sketchy game. As tension rose, we pressed them to change course and head back to our original route. The captain, realizing the gate was up, reluctantly complied. The next morning, we woke up to the ship gliding through the original path. No secret drop-offs, no shady deals. The passengers exchanged relieved looks, grateful that our collective concern made the crew think twice. We eventually did catch the northern lights, but the magic was tainted by the realization that we narrowly avoided becoming unwitting accomplices in whatever illegal scheme the crew had going on. Lesson learned, even in the serene Arctic Circle, where the world feels untouched and pure, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. The Arctic adventure turned into a chilling revelation, a reminder that danger doesn't always announce itself with a storm. Sometimes, it sails quietly in the frigid, icy waters. There we were, pumped up for Coachella. Me and the gang, ready to dive into the music, the vibes, the whole shebang. We've been looking forward to this for ages. The festival grounds were massive, people from all walks of life converging to celebrate music. We were soaking it all in, going from stage to stage, dancing like nobody was watching. The atmosphere was electric. As the sun set, the neon lights took over, and the headliners hit the main stage. It was pure magic. But in the midst of all this euphoria, something felt off. A weird energy that you couldn't quite put your finger on. In the sea of faces, we started noticing a group that seemed out of place. Dressed in dark clothes, they weren't there for the music. They were there for something else. As we moved through the crowd, they seemed to follow. Paranoia? Maybe. But it felt real. We changed direction, and they'd adjust their course, like they had their eyes on us. We decided to test it out. Went to the food stalls, took a detour through the art installations, but they were always there. Watching. Waiting. Our excitement turned into unease. Then, at the quieter edges of the festival, away from the pulsating beats, we saw them huddled together, exchanging something that didn't look like festival merchandise. It was like they had their own agenda within this sea of celebration. Curiosity got the better of us. We decided to eavesdrop, act like we were just chilling nearby. The bits we caught were chilling, whispers about a plan, a meet-up, something happening after the festival. A whole other layer to this party we didn't sign up for. As the night wore on, we noticed more of them blending in. It wasn't just a few, it was a network, a web, each person with a role in whatever scheme they were cooking up. Our group tried to stay inconspicuous, but it felt like we were being herded into a trap. It was like a horror movie, and we were the unsuspecting cast. Midnight approached, and the festival grounds took on a surreal vibe. The neon lights, once enchanting, now seemed ominous. The group we'd been tailing started moving with purpose, converging near the exit. That's when we made the call, ditch the festival, get out before whatever was about to unfold. We weren't sticking around to find out their endgame. We maneuvered through the crowd, avoided their gazes, and slipped away. As we left the festival behind, we saw a convoy of unmarked vans pulling up, the shady group ushering people inside. We made it to safety, but the night was marred by the realization that beneath the pulsating music and the carefree festival atmosphere, there was something sinister at play. What were they planning? What kind of twisted after-party did we narrowly escape? We never found out the answers, but Coachella, for us, was forever tainted. The music may have been the headline, but that hidden agenda, lurking just beneath the surface, left us with an unforgettable horror story instead of cherished festival memories. Me and my partner, we thought Tuscany would be the perfect place for a romantic escape. rolling vineyards, quaint villages, all the good stuff. Little did we know, our dreamy getaway was about to take a dark turn. We arrived at this charming vineyard, picturesque hills, rows of grapevines stretching for miles. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow on everything. It was straight out of a postcard. The winery owners, an elderly couple, greeted us warmly. They seemed like the friendliest people, so genuine, so Tuscan. They showed us around, explained the winemaking process, and everything seemed perfect. As the days passed, we noticed a few odd things. Hushed conversations among the vineyard workers, glances exchanged when they thought we weren't looking. It was like there was this undercurrent of tension we couldn't quite grasp. One night, after a hearty Tuscan dinner, we overheard snippets of a conversation between two workers. The language barrier was a challenge, but their urgency and the occasional mention of a secret were clear enough. Curiosity got the better of us. We decided to do some snooping around after dark, thinking it might just be some local drama we stumbled upon. As we tiptoed through the vineyards, we stumbled upon a hidden cellar. It wasn't on any of the official tours. We peeked inside, and there it was, barrels upon barrels of wine, but not the type you find in any tourist's glass. The workers weren't making wine, they were bottling something else entirely. The smell was overpowering, something chemical, not the sweet aroma of fermenting grapes. We were onto something we shouldn't have discovered. We heard footsteps approaching, panicked whispers. Our hearts raced. We hid, watching as a group of workers hurriedly sealed the bottles. They seemed to be following some strict procedure, glancing around nervously. Suddenly, a door creaked open, and we saw the elderly couple from the winery. But it wasn't warmth in their eyes, it was pure malice. They exchanged a sinister look, and that's when we realized they were the masterminds behind whatever shady business was happening in their vineyard. We hightailed it out of there, back to our room, hearts pounding. The next morning, we confronted the couple, demanding answers. They played innocent, claiming we misunderstood everything. But we weren't fooled. We decided to leave immediately, fearing we might become pawns in whatever game they were playing. As we sped away from that once charming vineyard, we couldn't shake the feeling that we narrowly escaped something much darker than a romantic Tuscan vacation. What were they bottling in those secret cellars? Why the secrecy? We reported our findings to the local authorities, but the investigation seemed to hit dead ends. It was like the conspiracy reached far and wide, shielding those responsible. I had this family reunion thing up in the Scottish Highlands. You know, the misty landscapes, green hills, all that Scottish charm. The plan was to catch up with relatives I hadn't seen in years, relive some old memories, that sort of thing. Little did I know, this reunion was about to take a seriously messed up turn. The family cottage was nestled in this remote village, surrounded by mountains and forests. Everything seemed normal at first. Hugs, laughter, catching up on who married who, had kids, that kind of reunion routine. But as the night set in, things started feeling off. Weird glances, hushed conversations, like they were talking about something I wasn't supposed to know. I figured it was just family gossip, you know, the usual drama. So, there I was, sipping on some scotch, surrounded by my kin, when I overheard a conversation between my dad and uncle. They were talking about a family secret, something they thought was better off buried. I couldn't catch all the details, but they were tense, nervous. Now, I'm not one to dig into family business, but the secrecy got me curious. Why all the hush-hush? What were they hiding? Later that night, I decided to go for a walk to clear my head. The village was silent, eerie almost. The moon cast long shadows on the cobblestone streets. That's when I saw it, a flickering light coming from an old, abandoned house at the edge of the village. Curiosity got the better of me. I approached the house, peeking through the dusty windows. What I saw made my blood run cold. My relatives, in some kind of ritual, chanting and holding these old family artifacts, heirlooms that were supposed to stay hidden. I could feel the weight of the secret they were guarding, and it wasn't your typical family drama. There was darkness in that room, something I couldn't put my finger on. It was like the past had claws, digging into the present. I hid in the shadows, watching the ritual unfold. They were summoning memories, painful ones, things that should have stayed buried. It wasn't just a reunion, it was a reckoning with the sins of our forefathers. Suddenly, they sensed my presence. The atmosphere shifted. Eyes locked onto mine, expressions twisted with a mix of guilt and anger. I felt like an intruder in my own family's twisted history. I sprinted back to the cottage, heart pounding. The night was thick with tension. I confronted my dad, demanding an explanation. He hesitated, then spilled the beans, a dark family secret involving betrayal, revenge, and a tragedy that scarred our bloodline. The reunion that started with hugs and laughter turned into a chilling ordeal of confronting the skeletons in our family closet. The secrets we uncovered that night stained the bonds that held us together. As I left the islands, the mist clinging to the hills seemed to mirror the foggy truth that enveloped our family history. That trip, meant for nostalgia, left me haunted by the shadows of our past, casting a different kind of mist over the Scottish Highlands for me. Me and the gang, we decided to get our adrenaline pumping with this river rafting thing in Costa Rica. You know, water, rapids, a whole adventure deal. Sounded like a blast, and we were all in for it. Little did we know, this trip was going to turn into a full-blown nightmare. We started off all excited, life jackets on, helmets snug. The river looked wild, rapids crashing like they had a grudge against us. It was all fun, screaming, water splashing, feeling alive. Until we noticed another group, kinda lurking in the shadows of the riverbank. At first, we thought it was just some friendly competition, you know, who can conquer the rapids better. But as we navigated through the twists and turns, things got weird. They were tailing us, getting too close for comfort. It wasn't a race anymore, it was something darker. We tried to shake them off, take different paths, but they stuck like glue. I could see their faces now, determined, angry. It was like they weren't here for the thrill, they were here for control. The river, once our playground, became this battleground. They started yelling, cursing at us, like the rapids weren't wild enough for them. The air got thick with tension, and I could feel it, this wasn't gonna end well. Suddenly, they veered their raft right into ours. Chaos erupted, paddles clashing, bodies colliding. It was a mess. They weren't here for a friendly competition, they were here for dominance. We were just trying to survive the rapids, and now we were fighting for our lives against these lunatics. The river became this twisted arena, and we were the unwilling gladiators. One guy from their group, he had this look in his eyes, like he'd do anything to win. It wasn't about the thrill anymore, it was about power, control over this raging force of nature. As we struggled to keep our raft afloat, they rammed into us again. It was a calculated move, like they had some sick strategy. We were surrounded by water, rapids roaring, and yet, it felt like the air was getting thinner. The adrenaline that was once our high became this suffocating fear. One of our crew got knocked overboard, and the river swallowed him whole. Panic set in. We were no longer on an adventure, we were in a fight for survival. The rapids, once exhilarating, now felt like a merciless force, tearing us apart. We managed to break away, leaving them in our turbulent wake. But the damage was done. We were down a member, and the river, once our playground, became a witness to this twisted competition. As we reached calmer waters, relief washed over us. But there was this lingering dread. What kind of thrill-seekers turn a river adventure into a violent power play? It wasn't just a rough ride, it was a descent into human darkness. We made it out, shaken, scarred. The rapids, they seemed tamer now, like they were mourning the madness they'd witnessed. We didn't conquer the river that day, we survived it, scarred by the rapids and the cruelty of those who saw it not as nature's challenge, but as a battleground for something far more sinister. We thought it'd be a swell idea to take a hot air balloon ride in Cappadocia while on vacation. You know, those balloon-filled skies, unique landscape, perfect Instagram material. Sounded like a dreamy way to spend the day. But sometimes dreams turn into nightmares, and this one took a nosedive real quick. We hopped into the basket, all excited. The balloon started ascending, and the landscape below was like something out of a storybook. Breathtaking, really. But then, things started feeling off. The pilot, this dude who looked like he'd seen a few too many sunrises in Cappadocia, had this twitchy vibe. As we drifted higher, the landscape became a patchwork of fairy chimneys and valleys. I wanted to soak it all in, but the unease settled in the pit of my stomach. The pilot, he wasn't into the whole scenic vibe. He kept checking his surroundings like he was being hunted or something. The missus noticed it too, that awkward tension in the air. We exchanged nervous glances, both silently questioning what was going on. We were just two passengers, entrusting our serene journey to a balloon pilot. Little did we know, the air up there was getting thick with something we hadn't signed up for. The balloon hovered over these majestic valleys, but our pilot was busy on his radio, talking in hushed tones. Whatever plot was unfolding, we were right in the middle of it, floating in this fragile basket suspended above the otherworldly landscape. It was then I spotted them, a couple of shady-looking figures on the ground, communicating with our pilot. It wasn't part of the typical Cappadocian experience, I can tell you that much. I felt a chill down my spine, realizing we weren't just passengers, we were pawns in some real-life chess game. As the balloon glided over these ancient valleys, the missus whispered, "Do you think we're in danger?" I wish I could have said no, reassured her, but the truth was, we were as vulnerable as that balloon swaying in the wind. The pilot, he wasn't just navigating the winds, he was navigating some dangerous plot. The once serene adventure morphed into this suspense-filled ride where the stakes were higher than the balloon's altitude. I tried to catch snippets of the pilot's conversation on that radio of his, but it was all cryptic codes and hushed tones. We were drifting above Cappadocia, but it felt more like we were drifting into the crossfire of some shadowy conflict. Then, the balloon began descending faster than expected, making us clutch the basket's edge. The missus, she looked at me with eyes wide, panic setting in. We weren't descending for a smooth landing, we were plummeting, and the once majestic valleys were now looming hazards. The figures on the ground scattered as the balloon careened towards the rocky terrain. The pilot, his frantic maneuvers were more survival instinct than skilled navigation. We were a balloon caught in a storm of human deceit. As we crashed into the earth, the basket tumbled, and we were thrown like rag dolls. Rocks, dust, the whole chaotic scene played out around us. The balloon ride, meant to be a romantic escapade, turned into a fight for survival, and the once serene landscape became the witness to our descent into a perilous reality. We picked ourselves up, bruised and battered, surrounded by the wreckage of our once dreamy balloon ride. The pilot was nowhere to be seen, and those shadowy figures had vanished into the Cappadocian landscape. We were left there, dazed and shaken, with a story that wasn't about fairy chimneys but about the dark underbelly hidden behind the beauty of a tourist hotspot. The missus and I, we stumbled away from the wreckage, back into the valleys that had witnessed our descent. Cappadocia, with its surreal landscape, became the backdrop of a tale we never expected, a tale of danger lurking high above the scenic beauty, a tale where a hot air balloon ride turned into a descent into the shadows of human treachery. So, there I was, thinking a wellness retreat in Bali would be the perfect escape from the daily grind. You know, all that relaxation and rejuvenation stuff. Little did I know, this retreat had more in store for me than just yoga and smoothie bowls. The place looked like paradise on the surface, lush greenery, tranquil surroundings, people chanting OM and all that. I thought, great, I could use some zen in my life. But as I settled in, things got weird. The daily routine was intense, like they were pushing us beyond relaxation into some kind of mental endurance. Yoga sessions turned into grueling workouts, and the smoothie bowls? They tasted weird, like there was something off about the ingredients. I started noticing odd behavior among the other participants. Whispered conversations, secretive glances. It was like there was an unspoken agreement among them, and I was the outsider. The wellness retreat wasn't as welcoming as I expected. One day, I wandered into this off-limits area by mistake. It was like stumbling onto the retreat's dark underbelly. The serene facade hid a series of locked rooms and a weird, low hum that sent shivers down my spine. I sensed something was seriously wrong. I tried asking the staff about it, but they dodged my questions, smiling that fake, serene smile. It was like they were all in on some sinister secret. The wellness retreat turned from a place of rejuvenation to a mysterious labyrinth of deception. Late one night, I overheard a conversation among the staff. They were talking about enhancing the experience for the participants, like they had some sinister agenda. Fear gripped me as I realized I wasn't seeking relaxation. I was caught in the clutches of something far more ominous. I tried to leave, but it was like the retreat itself was keeping me captive. The lush surroundings turned into a maze of confusion, every path leading me back to the sinister heart of the retreat. It was like the place had a mind of its own, and I was at its mercy. As I dug deeper, I discovered that the wellness retreat was experimenting with mind-altering techniques. They were pushing boundaries, blurring the line between relaxation and something much more sinister. The paradise I sought became a nightmare of manipulation and control. One day, they made us drink this strange herbal tea during a meditation session. I hesitated, but peer pressure got the better of me. The moment the liquid touched my lips, everything blurred. It was like a waking nightmare, hallucinations, distorted reality. The wellness retreat was playing with our minds. I tried to resist, but it was impossible. The retreat had this hypnotic grip on everyone. I felt like I was losing control, my well-being slipping away in the name of some twisted experiment. The lush surroundings became a prison, and the retreat, once a haven, turned into a house of horrors. Participants started disappearing, one by one. It was like they were being swallowed by the sinister agenda of the wellness retreat. Fear settled in as I realized I was next. The serene paradise became a realm of paranoia and dread. I confronted the staff, demanding answers. They just smiled that eerie smile and said it was all part of the process. The process of what? I had no idea. The wellness retreat, instead of being a haven for relaxation, became a nightmarish experiment on unsuspecting souls. One night, they led us to a secluded area for a special meditation. The atmosphere was heavy with anticipation, and I could sense something was about to go terribly wrong. As the meditation began, I felt my mind slipping away, visions distorting into a surreal nightmare. I fought to stay conscious, to break free from the retreat's insidious control. It was like a battle for my sanity, and the lush surroundings became a chaotic landscape of confusion. The sinister agenda of the wellness retreat was unraveling, and I was caught in the crossfire. In a moment of clarity, I broke away from the meditation, stumbling into the darkened jungle. Fear propelled me forward, away from the retreat's twisted experiment. The lush Bali landscape turned into a maze of uncertainty, every step a struggle against the retreat's grip. I found my way to the nearest village, desperate for help. The locals looked at me like I was crazy, but I knew I had to expose the dark secrets of the wellness retreat. The lush paradise, once a symbol of tranquility, now held the scars of a nightmarish encounter. I reported the sinister agenda to the authorities, and they promised an investigation. The wellness retreat, which promised relaxation and rejuvenation, became a cautionary tale of manipulation and danger. The lush Bali surroundings, once a dream escape, now held the echoes of a nightmarish ordeal that forever changed my perception of seeking wellness in paradise.